It's often said the world of Ice and Fire is one made up of many shades of grey, that no characters are truly good or truly evil. The point of the series is the human heart in conflict with itself, yada yada yada. Well, we call balls on that. Many characters are certainly grey in their morality, and all characters in A Song of Ice and Fire are well written, but to suggest that some characters don't have hearts as black as coal is the biggest hot take since saying Craster did nothing wrong. Hi Hilts! Today we aim to explore this as we rank the most prominent evil characters from A Song of Ice and Fire. But formalities first. Like, subscribe, algorithm, praise it, Patreon, Discord, here, done. And I really don't feel like I should have to say this, but it's the internet. Evil is of course a subjective term, and people have different opinions and experiences that dictate where they draw the line. I think, though, as level-headed individuals, we can all agree that actions like cold-blooded murder, you-know-what crime, and torture for the fun of it get you thrown into that camp. If you think otherwise, please seek help immediately. What we're looking at is not prominent characters who have done a few bad things, because that's basically everyone in Westeros, but those whose wickedness far outweighs anything good they may have done. The sort of unbalance that pushes them firmly out of the grey realms of anti-heroes and anti-villains and into a deep, dark shade of irredeemable black. Honourable mentions first, Joffrey and Cersei. Joffrey is an inept 13-year-old kid, so there was time to change his ways had he not pissed off Nanny Olenna. And Cersei's incompetence is laughable, and in regards to the books, she's maybe had a few people knocked off. Actually, Tom, in fairness, the incident with Robert's bastards probably could get her wanged on the list. But while they are both giving it a good go, neither are near the level of these evil bastards. Another honourable mention is Aerys Targaryen, otherwise known as the Mad King. The things this guy has done absolutely fit the bill for evil and could get him pretty high up there. You-know-whatting his wife, sneaking into other ladies' rooms, sadistic uses of wildfire, example Primus being the noble Starks wanting a trial by combat, so the sneaky cunt chooses fire as his champion, and the coup de grace, he was willing to murder 500,000 people for reasons. But we're not going to put him officially on the list, because as Tom has so eloquently put in my notes here, the guy was a bit of a fucking nutter. Why, Tom, you sure have a way with words. And a large portion of his actions could be attributed to a mental illness that he really had no control over versus actual conscious malice and willful evil. He was crazy enough that his own family wanted him off the spiky chair. What we're trying to say is that if anyone here could submit a plea for not guilty by reason of insanity and get away with it, it probably would be this guy. And one final evil person who sneaks under the radar is none other than Khal Drogo, a man that leads a Khalasar of 50,000 Dothraki screamers, pillaging and you-know-whatting his way across Essos. We just accept these things without giving it much thought. But Mirri Maz Duur was 100% justified in ending him and his unborn heir, who would have burned and pillaged his way over to Westeros. Of course, there's the slight argument that it's Dothraki culture, but it doesn't actually make it any less fucked up. It's funny, we kind of just brushed this aside because he's a bit of a badass. But honestly, his gentleness with Dany aside, he's actually a bit of a monster. Anyway, food for thought. Onwards, Tom, to the actual hit list, I mean rankings. Kicking the list off at number 8, we have Littlefinger. A walking, talking guide for the dangers of an extreme case of inferiority complex, Littlefinger is without doubt an evil bastard. Happy to start wars and condemn countless innocents to its brutality, betray those who have placed their trust in him, commit matricide, and even have children murdered. This is a Machiavellian narcissist who will stop at nothing to get what he wants and does not care who gets in his way. Even the love of his life wasn't safe. Unlike Varys, every horrible thing Peter has done has been for his own gain. His own lust for power. With the spider, there is this sliver of an argument that the ends justify the means if it will help the realm reach a more benevolent outcome overall, which helps cast Varys as more anti-villain than a true villain. But with Baelish, the guy is motivated by nothing other than greed and his desire to stick it to the lords that shunned him all those years ago. The only saving grace and redeemable trait for this guy, and what gets him down here at the bottom, is his purely pragmatic motivations. Everyone here is an evil bastard, make no mistake. But the reason Littlefinger is the least evilly bastardy evil bastard is that every time he does do something deplorable, there's always a pragmatic purpose to it. In other words, he isn't wantonly cruel, he doesn't do terrible things because he finds pleasure in it, or because he has a bone to pick. In the cliche words of many a movie mafia boss, it's nothing personal, it's just business. The man is just merely mitigating his losses. Plus, he did do us all a favor shoving Lysa out of the moon door. Come on, credit for good deeds where it's due. And running with that theme, and for similar reasons, at number 7, we've got Roose Bolton. A guy that ticks more than enough boxes on Hare's checklist to warrant a diagnosis of psychopathy, Roose Bolton definitely makes it to this malevolent gathering. A cold, callous man lacking in morals and perfectly happy to commit evil deeds if it advances his interests. Much like Littlefinger, Roose finds himself down near the bottom because, for the most part, he too is motivated by opportunity and pragmatism over malice and sadistic glee, and, evil just for the sake of it. Again, for the most part. Something I think gets lost on fans due to the admittedly justifiable blind hatred is that Roose did not set out with intentions of betraying Robb. Up until a certain point in which the scale tips, which we plan to do a video on, he may have wanted to undermine the other great northern houses a little, but otherwise, he was all in for the king in the north. Actually consider his advice at the beginning of the war. It's all solid, wise, and extremely helpful. Even Robb's death at his hands, it's all business. He doesn't do anything particularly malicious or sadistic, he just stabs him in the heart, which is one of the cleanest and least painful ways to kill someone in the medieval world. Hey Sandor. What gets Roose a rung higher than the Lord of the Fingers, however, is that, for the most part we mentioned earlier when it comes to his pragmatism. He is capable of extreme cruelty just for the sake of it in some circumstances and against innocents. A great example being when he promises mercy to the refugees of Winterfell in exchange for service. But hangs them all anyway when the repairs are complete, with the mercy supposedly being he didn't have them flayed instead. He's also a practitioner of First Right, which is a creepy outlawed practice in the north. And because of that, we get Ramsay. Oh, and he also murdered the husband in cold blood for not seeking his approval for the marriage in the first place. Not to mention the rumours around the Dreadfort. We're not exactly sure what goes on there, but Ramsay does use the castle to torture Theon, so it's probable that Ramsay learned some of those darker behaviours from Roose, and while I think there is a slight defence in that Roose does actively disapprove of Ramsay's behaviours, Tom makes a very solid point in that it's not the acts themselves that Roose disapproves of, it's the pointlessness of them. I.e.,
by all means be a twisted, sadistic little a-hole, my son. But make sure it doesn't undermine my house and serves me in some way.
As for a redeemable attribute, I guess it's kind of admirable that now his power play is over and he's done his evil deeds, he does seem to sincerely want to rule the North somewhat fairly and restore peace. But still, fuck you, Roose. Bookmanis and myself are coming to put you in your place. At number 6, we've placed Ratman. I mean Waldefrey. So, a little dig at certain commenters who on our first Dark video said very hurtful things along the lines of,
"Let me save you 20 minutes. Robb just needed to go through with the marriage pact and everything would have been fine."
No, it wouldn't. George has stated that these rodent-reminiscent wastes of good air were always going to betray Robb eventually once he started losing his footing in the war. It's just Robb slapping their face with the marriage pact expedited it, and the cruelty with which they enacted their turncloaking. And if you look at how the majority of Freys have been characterized, that's really not a stretch. Bitter and slimy as fuck are definitely traits you could associate with the head of the Rat Pack. But after the Red Wedding, we can tack on irredeemably evil too. Betrayal is one thing, but breaking guest rights, that's another level of immoral entirely. This is one of the few things that people throughout Westeros abide to, and anyone that breaks this is universally condemned. No one in their right minds will deal with Walder Frey for marriages or alliances based purely on the Red Wedding. Not to mention all the really sick, stomach-turning, sadistic things done to Robb, and the throwing of Kat's naked body into the Trident after their deaths. Those weren't Roos's idea, they came from the mind of this twisted son of a bitch. Got to give credit where it's due, at least the Lannisters arranged for Ned's bones to be returned to the Starks. For me, that's what gets him above Roose. Roose is evil, but Walder is purposefully extra cruel and sadistic about it. And honestly, I don't think any scene from the show has elicited as much joy as this one right here did. I honestly can't wait for Stoneheart to do the same. As for a redeeming quality, I guess you could argue he places value in family, but then... Jingle Bell. God, these redeeming traits are so hollow, Tom. What were we thinking? Clocking in at number 5, we've got this godly man. It's, of course, Craster. Lightning pick here, guys. Dude lives in a creepy Ed Gein-style keep, and you know what's his many daughters, then sacrifices the male offspring to creepy ice demons that like to use our dead as meat puppets and want to kill us all. Enough said, I think we can all agree he belongs here, right? Redeeming trait... In fairness, he does aid the Night's Watch quite a bit. We've got to give credit where it's due. Next up at number 4, we've got Tywin's mad dog, Gregor Clegane. Probably the scariest guy on the list. With all the markers of a criminal psychopath, Gregor is one of the most prolific characters in the series that you could quite easily label pure evil. Cruel, murderous, and remorseless, all encased in a temper-fueled physical form so powerful that me and Tom owe a lot of the channel's success in trying to name fighters that might have a chance of beating him in a fight to the death. Because we all want to picture him killed as many times as possible by as many people as possible. There is a simplicity in this bastard's deeds that means we don't have to break him down in depth. So here's the cliff notes. Familiar side, he murdered his father and sister, melted his brother's face just for playing with his toys. Infanticide, or Aegon, or Fagon, I'm still not sure, but either way it was a baby whose head he smashed, killed his own man for snoring loudly, and that's just the confirmed homicides. Servants constantly go missing in his keep, and somehow I don't think they're making use of their vacation days. Honestly, the guy should have his own murder moniker. He kills innocents so frequently and so indiscriminately. Mountainside, Clegane aside, Gregor side, you let us know in the comments. And that's just the bloody murders. The crimes he committed in King's Landing during Robert's Rebellion and at the Crossroads Inn, and 7 no's elsewhere, we all know too well. He's 8 feet tall and 400 pounds of shit. A monster who will do what he wants, when he wants, and only listens to one person. As for a redeeming trait, honestly, there's nothing. The best we can offer is a reason to pity him. The guy's anger and psychotic violence could be attributed in no small part to the fact he is in constant, blinding pain. His gigantism causes him immense migraines that require constant milk of the poppy to dull it. It doesn't excuse his behavior, no, but it does explain some of it. One of the reasons we admire Oberyn so much on this channel is down to the fact that, despite having to donate his brains for it, he did put this monster down. What, Tom? Damn it, Qyburn! At number 3, it's the rotten apple that fell close to the tree. Hey, that rhymed, Tom. It's Ramsay Bolton. Of course, this embodiment for where extreme sociopathy can lead would be skulking around up here near the top. He's all the twisted things that makes Gregor so detestably evil, with one caveat. He's actually getting off on it. All of Gregor's acts of evil can be attributed to primal motivators and a psychopathic lack of empathy and remorse. Ramsay, however, the suffering is the objective. He will be torturing you with one hand and pulling himself off with the other. The fact he gets such a sadistic rise out of what is often pointless torture just adds another layer of sick and twisted to the games he plays that firmly pushes him past Gregor in the pure evil camp. And this is before we start looking into what he did to Theon or his hunting games. It genuinely makes me feel sick recounting them, but just know, the show tones down his hunting of women for sport by a not insignificant margin. If you want the details, check out our Ramsay vs. Gregor video. As for a redeeming trait, like Gregor, there really isn't anything redeemable about him, merely something to pity. The circumstances of his upbringing do kind of give rise to the notion he never really had a chance of becoming halfway decent, even if he was so inclined. But that's it. He absolutely belongs up here. And just like your father, Ramsay, me and Bookmanis are coming for your head! Oh, just as soon as this frostbite clears off my sword hands. Fuck! Manis, another one of my sword-holding fingers fell off. At number 2, it's the old lion himself, Tywin Lannister. Me and Tom are back to our old ways of bickering like petty little kids with this one. Balance restored, everything is right with the world once again. The question we both have a different answer for is this. Is it more evil to choose to commit acts of extreme cruelty yourself, or is it worse to be the guy who chooses to knowingly facilitate it? Because the answer, of course, determines how high Tywin gets on this list and whether or not he surpasses his underling. Personally, I think it's worse to be the one committing the evil act yourself. It's one thing to order something horrible, I think it's another plane of messed up to be the one that can switch off their conscience to carry it out. Tom, however, disagrees and believes it's far worse to be the one with the authority over the ones doing the wicked deeds and then feigning ignorance about them. This is a very nuanced issue in fairness, especially in our own history, so let us know your thoughts in the comments and who you agree with. And do note, this is just our opinions. Tywin, like Littlefinger, hasn't done many evil things himself directly, but the things that have been done by the men under his command could easily skyrocket the man to first place if collected up and placed on the morality scales. The fact he claims plausible deniability kind of makes him even more shitty, skirting round the issues with the whole, I didn't tell them to do that, I only told them to do this shtick. It's kind of the inverse of the, I was only following orders defense. Now, many may want to argue Tywin is just pragmatic and Machiavellian like Littlefinger, but the truth is, Tywin hides behind merely a veneer of pragmatism and nobility. In reality, he's an exceptionally twisted individual, and his hypocrisy is honestly touching legendary status. Let's play a game. I like games, Tom. I'll read you out some Tywin quotes, and we'll see how well your bullshit detectors work. Joffrey, when your enemies defy you... God, I cannot do a Charles Dance impression, Tom. I'm just going to do it in a snotty aristocratic voice. Fuck it. Joffrey, when your enemies defy you, you must serve them steel and fire. When they go to their knees, however... Can someone tell that fucking guy next door to stop playing his harp? I'm trying to read here. You must help them back to their feet. Elsewise no man will ever bend the knee to you. Great and noble words of wisdom there. Just ask the 300 women, children, and men of House Rain that surrendered to Tywin and were seeking peace terms. Oh, that's right, you can't, because Tywin decided, nope, I'm going to block you into these mines, divert a fucking stream, and drown you all to death. Okay, but one bad incident does not a purely evil bastard make. Perhaps he regretted and repented. Let's look at the next quote. Nor did I yet grasp what I had in Gregor Clegane. Only that he was huge and terrible in battle. The rape. Even you will not accuse me of giving that command, I would hope.
Well, Father, do you remember my former wife, Tysha?
Fuck, I can't do a Tyrion either! Well, we know the story. A barracks full of men and making Tyrion watch to teach him a lesson. Tysha was no older than Sansa, so around 13 to 14 years old, and Tywin inflicts what would most assuredly be the most traumatic experience of her life, solely for his own ego and dominance. He could have had the marriage annulled, but instead had Jaime lie and facilitated despicable acts being done to an innocent girl. And if you thought Walder was a petty, bitter bitch, he's got nothing on Tywin. During the closing stages of the rebellion, he rode to King's Landing and sacked it. Speculated to be primarily motivated by how he felt slighted by Aerys all those years. The people of King's Landing were innocent. But fuck it! It's all about sending a message and inspiring those bloody songs, eh? We often make jokes about Tywin and war crimes, but the truth is, he really does fucking go there, and he's got so much wealth and power that he can't be made to pay for them. Ironically. There's also notions that he had earlier, well, you know, due to Aerys denying Tywin's offer to match Rhaegar and Cersei. The man will take no slice to his houses, which in reality just means his name. And to finish it off, here's a bonus round of how hypocritical can Tywin be today. And make no mistake, this was the last time I will suffer you to bring shame onto House Lannister. You are done with whores. The next one I find in your bed, I'll hang. As for a redeeming trait, like Walder, I want to say family, but Tyrion. Though, unlike Walder, I think it's fair to say Tywin is a highly effective administrator, and while it's not unicorns and fairies, he can keep things running smoothly and efficiently. I.e., at least his evil actions do at least somewhat contribute to peace, prosperity, and stability in the realm, for the majority at least. I'm not sure he should be number 2, Tom, or even above Gregor and Ramsay, but yeah, I do agree with you, he's an evil bastard and he does belong on this list. And at number 1, it probably comes as a shock to no one, but it's Euron fucking Greyjoy. The book version, of course. Dude wants to end the fucking world and rise to godhood via mass sacrificial rituals and blood magics so extreme it would make Mel blush and say, hey, come on now, that's a bit too far. There is a line, you know. In terms of over-the-top evil for the sake of it evil, this guy is unmatched. He's done it all. Mass cold-blooded murder, kinslaying, sadistically motivated torture, you know what, of both men and women across the world, and all with a smile on his face and a twinkle in his good eye. Basically, Euron is everything that makes Ramsay a twisted, soulless monster, but what makes him far worse is that he has the competence and power to project this despicable evil worldwide. Ramsay is small time, happy to play in his playpen around the Dreadfort, and as long as you stay away from that accursed place, you should be good. Euron, though, you can run. But if he wants you, be sure his sails will darken your nearest waters. As for a redeemable trait, no. Pitiable trait, Don't make me laugh. This guy is rotten to the very core. And that's our... Wait. Tom? Are we not done? It seems we aren't. In a Fandome first, Tom's got a bonus pick for you, and we'll leave it up to you, the viewers, to place him. It's Maegor the Cruel. So, just how can one earn the moniker The Cruel? Well, I'm glad you asked. This monster's rap sheet is one of the longest on this list, and he's probably the guy Gregor Clegane would have aspired to be were I convinced Gregor actually had the inclination to have studied a lick of history. Or could, read. But to avoid making the video several hours long, we'll just cover his greatest hits. After a little quarrel with the Faith over his marrying a second wife, which was considered a grave sin by the people at this point in time, he burned down the Sept of Remembrance, with 700 people still inside, and those lucky enough to escape were shot with arrows. So death by the oldest and therefore most powerful dragonfire in the lore, or a rain of arrows. Neither sounds particularly fun, I'll be honest, Tom. But he wasn't done there. Maegor decided 2 wives are great, but 3 is even better. Rumor has it he killed 12 septums before he found one who would conduct the marriage ceremony, adding more cold-blooded murder of innocents to his ever-growing list of dastardly deeds. But that's not even the worst part of this, believe it or not. The guest of honor at this ceremony was Wat the Hewer, one of the leaders of the Faith militant fighting against Maegor. Twisted fuck that he was, Maegor had each of Wat's limbs cut off and ordered his maesters to keep the poor sod alive. Scratch what I said earlier about Gregor, he definitely knows who this guy is based on this act. So Wat could witness Maegor's wedding. The one Wat and his Faith rose up in arms against. Got to give the guy points for being a petty bastard. Believe it or not, he still didn't have the Cruel moniker yet. That came when he defeated and killed his nephew Aegon the Uncrowned above the God's Eye. So let's add the first instance of kinslaying by dragonfire to the rap sheet. But we're still not done. Oh no. When Maegor's second wife, Aerys Harroway, miscarried what would have been his first child, the body of which was an eyeless, twisted monstrosity, he had everyone involved in the birth executed, adding a third Grand Maester's head to his collection. Then, Maegor's third wife, Tyanna, convinced him that Aerys had been sleeping with 20 goodmen. Must be his ancestor Ramsay.
I understood that reference.
He then had those 20 good men, in addition to Aerys' father, the Hand of the King, executed. For Aerys, he let Tyanna torture her for 14 days before she died, watching for a good stint of it. Then he had her cut into several pieces and posted at various corners of King's Landing. Not happy with the death of a handful of Harroways, he marched to Harrenhal and killed Aerys' cousins and any man, woman, or child who had Harroway blood in them. Then marched to Harroway's town to continue the job. Pretty sick and evil bastard, right? And we haven't even covered his most well-known crime, to us fans at least. He was the one who oversaw the construction of Maegor's Holdfast. Dun dun dun! Shocking revelation, eh? You would have never known that if I hadn't connected those dots, would you? #Fandome solves Throne's longest unsolved mystery. The reason the Red Keep has all those secret tunnels is because of Maegor, and to congratulate the builders who put in a solid shift, he held a great feast for them, and then had them all murdered to keep those tunnels secret. As for a redeemable trait, he's pretty big on recycling. He did a fine job of turning the bonfire he made of the Sept of Remembrance into the foundations of the Dragon Pit. But dicking around aside, honestly, if you tallied up the innocent body count that are a direct result of his actions or orders, he's potentially got all these guys, including Tywin, licked. Where would you put Maegor? Would he knock Euron off the top, or supplant Ramsay or Tywin? Let us know your thoughts. The topic of evil is quite an interesting one, as I find it's more subjective than many other topics. And that's our take. Told you they were coming. Thanks for watching, guys.